All leaders strive to obtain peak performance out of their teams in one way or another. The best leaders, however, find a way to get their teams emotionally connected with the leader, the organization, and amongst themselves. Today, my guest, Lewis Carter, and I discuss the key elements of an emotionally connected leader, how leaders can break the old culture model, how leaders can enable people to make mistakes, and most importantly, learn from them, the idea of lead by example as a value, and finally, why leading with respect is so important. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast, episode 75, In Great Company Through Emotionally Connected Workplaces with Lewis Carter. Welcome one, welcome all to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. It's your host and founder, Scott McCarthy, and welcome to you. Welcome to you, the listener. You're here listening to a podcast which is revolving around one thing and one thing only, and that is how we can help you become a better leader. And that doesn't matter if you are starting off your leadership journey, if you are a seasoned leader and just want to hone some skills, or if you're thinking of making that leadership jump and plunge into a leadership role, we have it all here for you at Moving Forward Leadership. And today I have a great show. And frankly, I'm going to put the bottom line up front. I'm interviewing an author of, I will say, one of the best leadership books I've ever read. And ladies and gentlemen, I've read a lot on the subject, as you can imagine, from all kinds of different authors, all kinds of different ideologies, from John Maxwell to military leaders such as Rick Hillier and everything in between. But this book, In Great Company, is jam-packed with great theory and, most importantly, tangible practical examples to support the theory across all kinds of spectrum. When I read this thing, it literally took me just a few days. And I'm not the world's fastest reader, but my God, I couldn't put this thing down. It was that good. But I don't want to go too crazy into the subject just yet. I got a couple of things to talk about here at Moving Forward Leadership before we truly dive into talk about Lewis and talk about In Great Company. And that is, I'm letting you know, you need to, right now, go to your web browser and type in movingforwardleadership.com/power. And what you're going to find there is the mail sign-up list for the Power Goals program. That's right. My uber popular podcast episode, Ditching Smart Goals for Power Goals, it got such a great response. I said, shag it, I am going to invest some time in it for you. And the end result is an online program which you can follow at your own leisure, your own tempo, and learn how to develop your own goals and how, most importantly, you can stick to obtaining your goals. Especially those of you who, I dread saying this, made those New Year's resolutions this year. My question to you is, are you part of the 92% or are you part of the 8%? The 92% represents the percentage of people who make New Year's resolutions, yet fail to achieve their New Year's resolutions. So what are you going to get out of this program? You're going to get a 5-step program which guides you through understanding what goals you need to pick for yourself to determine which ones are actually important to you, how to go about figuring out how to achieve those goals, how to plan them within your busy life, how to execute, and most importantly, how to get around those hiccups that always occur, and then finally, how to reflect properly and plan to solidify the execution towards obtaining your goal. Those are the 5 steps. Just like I mentioned in the podcast, there's more in-depth detail. I actually take myself through as a practical example for you, essentially how I developed this program on myself as a guinea pig, and you're going to get worksheets, you're going to get support network, you're going to get monthly coaching calls. Anyway, that's enough for now. What you need to do, like I said, go to movingforwardleadership.com/power, sign up for the mailing list, and once more information on when the official launch is going to be occurring, which will be in the near future. I'm anticipating within the next few weeks, I'm going to get this thing out to you, the masses. You can figure out if you want to go ahead and start changing your life or not. All right. Again, that's movingforwardleadership.com/power. All right. So today we're talking about emotionally connected workplaces, emotionally connected leaders, and the book In Great Company with its author, Lewis Carter. Lewis is one of the top 10 global experts in organizational culture. Author of 11 books in leadership and management, translated into 6 languages, 6, on a wide range of topics in the realm of leadership and management. But basically, he wrapped it all up into this great thing called In Great Company, and he is now pushing it out. He's the CEO of the Best Practice Institute, and he's led coaching and consulting and benchmark research projects, which have impacted millions of employees worldwide for the most of the Fortune 500. So it was absolute pleasure of mine to get Lewis on the show, to get him in. And in fact, what you'll hear from me is that he is probably the most expedient guest I've ever had on. From the time I finished the book to the time I got him on the call to the time you're listening to this podcast is record setting for here and potentially for any podcast, period. Because you know what? I couldn't wait to get this content out to you, the masses. And then finally, one last thing before we dive into the episode. Those who are part of the mastermind, the Moving Forward Leadership Mastermind, which is my free Facebook community, guess what? They've already listened to this show. And they're probably listening to it for the second time if you're that person. Why? Because I went ahead and I posted the raw video of our interview directly up in that Facebook group right after the show. So if you're interested in that perk, just go to movingforwardleadership.com/mastermind. And that will actually take you to the Facebook group, answer a couple questions, and you know what? I'll let you in and you can start improving your leadership and start interacting with other leaders from all over North America and the globe. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's enough. Let's get you into the goods. Here is my interview with Lewis Carter discussing how you can be in great company through an emotionally connected workplace. Lewis, welcome to Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So, got you on the show short notice because, as I show you, I have a copy of your book here. And I didn't say to you this about 30 seconds ago when we were talking about the book, but by far, and I'm a guy who's read a lot on the topic, one of my favorite books of all time on leadership. By far.
It's awesome to hear. Thank you. It's really very kind of you.
So when I was talking to PJ there and David, I was like, okay, I got to get Lewis on ASAP so that I can get his message out to the masses as quick as possible. So here you are within, I would say, pretty well record time for guest appearances on Moving Forward Leadership.
I'm glad to do it. Glad to do it.
So one of the first things I like to do with all my guests is get them to give a little bit of background on themselves, who they are, where they come from, how they got to where they are today, just so the audience has an idea of that, and then we can start diving into this great piece of work you got.
Well, you read the book, so you could probably tell me. So, Lou Carter. I mean, I started BPI back in 2001, largely because I wanted to create a community. And that's where it came from. Senior executives who were in community, and they weren't alone. They were at the top, and they weren't alone with each other. Really started it after 9/11. I was in New York City when I graduated. I was just going to my graduate school, and first day 9/11 hit, and I said, well, what am I going to do about this? So I did what any red-blooded American would do, and I started a drum circle. So it's not quite what you or other soldiers did, of course, during the time. But I was thinking about things about basically what do we do on the ground here in the U.S. and people needed community. And then I needed to figure out where am I going to get a job because, what they call a drummer without a girlfriend, homeless.
That's good.
So I had to get a job. And then I asked, well, people, they don't want drum circles. They certainly want benchmarking consortiums. They do want that. And I did books with a bunch of people who really were into that kind of thing, sharing information, sharing what they do really well in developing leaders. And I said, well, let's create a consortium, and we'll do research, and I'll develop lots of thought leadership, and we'll create really good thinking around it. And they signed on. Pfizer and Corning and GlaxoSmithKline, big companies, just all jumped on Walmart. They said, well, these are the things we must do, have to do in order to keep the world a better place and a better place to work, because it was really going downhill. And so that's really what the book's about. What I'm all about is making the world of work a better place.
No, it's awesome. Actually, I even made note of the 9/11 thing here because I remember that day, and I was at the Royal Military College when that all went down. So I thought it was pretty interesting that, you started that drummer circle, and it was mentioned in the book there. And I'm like, wow, here you are starting that. Meanwhile, I'm basically slowly preparing myself for 9 years after the fact, 8 years after the fact, getting my boots on the ground over there.
Different boots, different drums, right? And there's important drums to be beat. Just we beat them in different ways, and I'm very glad that you did join with our allied our forces here in the U.S. to make some change happen, which you did.
No, much appreciated that. So definitely, it takes a full team effort, and what you did, I feel was pretty great too. Help people get past that whole initial shock, get over their loss, and start rebuilding lives basically in your own way. So it was really
absolutely. I like how you said that, rebuilding lives. It's true, and we see it in different ways. We have to protect ourselves, and we also have to rebuild ourselves. I think both are very relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all part of the greater scheme, right? It's not just one individual piece. All the pieces have to come together and work properly. So, as I said, I went through this book in basically record time for me reading, which basically took me 2 to 3 days to read through. And one of the really great things that stood out to me, which you don't get a lot in leadership books, I find, especially the ones I read, and as I said, I've read a lot on the topic. You did a great balance between the theoretical stuff and then actually bring out a lot of the practical examples and using, some very big name companies as your example for the theory behind it, which is what I really enjoyed. And it's the reason why I feel like it's one of the best books if not the best book I've ever read on the topic. So the first thing I want to dive into is this whole emotionally connected leader and that whole ideology and where that came from, and maybe some of the key elements which comes out from one.
So imagine, which I know you can, a world or even a team, really a team, where you rely on each other so strongly and you have such aligned values and outcomes that you have to achieve that they're like brothers to you. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, we kind of do it every day.
That's what this is about.
Absolutely.
Really, not many people can say that what you have achieved and what you do every day, because we feel that our outcomes aren't as important as others, or they're not as critical to mission, and we don't understand how it connects to a larger whole. And when they're not as tangible for people, it's more difficult to get connected to each other and to the mission of the company. When a CEO and when a company really makes that aligned connection with people, and like you said in the book, there are those connections, whether it be the Korean augmentee soldiers and the U.S. soldiers going into action, or if it's Hubert Joly from Best Buy and saving their culture, or Netflix, or WD-40 and their Maniac Pledge, like we talked about all these companies, right? And we must do, and we will do, and no matter what, we're in charge of our own learning. These are not just companies, but they're individuals who really get it in a way that is greater than what you would typically hear of inside of organizations.
I really like the Best Buy example, and it kind of shocked me, but didn't shock me at the same time that the company was actually in that bad of disarray. Can we use that one and deep dive into that one a little bit deeper? Because especially me being a techie guy, Best Buy is kind of like, ooh, I want to go and walk through and browse. And now I remember, actually, just to double back, when we used to have Future Shop up here, and Future Shop was my go-to place. And I was like, Best Buy. But now it's like they've since done the 180. Future Shop doesn't exist anymore. There's probably listeners out there saying, what the heck's Future Shop anyway? And, but Best Buy has really turned itself around. So can we deep dive into that one just a touch more?
Sure. And you nailed it when you said it was kind of like the shop to go into, right? So Best Buy was a lot like that. People would go into Best Buy to check stuff out. Yeah. It would kind of be, it's like a car shop. You go in, you kick the tires, you leave, and you get it somewhere else, maybe out in the used car lot. In this case, they went in, checked out the electronics or wherever they want to, gadgets. They played with it. They put it on. They see what it could do. And then they left and they went on Amazon to buy it. And that was it. Jeff Bezos won. Best Buy, just take 2 or 3 or 4. And they came 1 step, 2 step, 3 steps closer to being a Circuit City or being another lousy company that just went out like Blockbuster, right?
Yeah.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen. So what happened was, so instead of being another, what they call them, company on the graveyard going down, Spencer Stuart, Jim Citrin looked for a CEO with a vision. And he said, well, we've got to revive these guys. We've got to help Best Buy because they're in trouble. They're becoming a showcase company, just like Circuit City and Blockbuster, where people want to get their stuff when they're at home in the comfort of their own home in their underwear. Literally, they want to do that. So instead, Jim went out and he said, I'm going to find some of the best possible CEOs. And Hubert Joly gave his vision statement. And he said in his vision statement, I want to create a company that's living. I want to create a company that can help its customers, be more to its customers than just a retail organization and a showcase. Now the board was listening. They said, we're not going to be a Circuit City anymore, a Blockbuster case. We're going to create Geek Squad. We're going to create things that are really awesome that people can say, I want to come back to Best Buy. I don't want to just go there to buy something and check something out. It's going to be a reason for me to be there for all the electronics or whatever gadgets we need to go there and then get them serviced. So they created this first sort of Geek Squad culture that enabled customers to be emotionally connected to the company itself. And so they always had to go back. It wasn't just about buying something on Amazon or even going to Apple. It's about going to this one-stop shop that really believed in them and could help them over time.
No, I really like that whole, especially vision aspect, right? And I feel like that's how so many organizations basically fail and crumble, is because either the CEO or the board or, senior leadership, whatever the company or organizational structure is, just kind of lack that long-term vision and the ideology and methodology to get to it. But you definitely could feel that turnaround. And I was reading it through the book. I was like, wow, I can actually see it. And as I reflect upon it, all the different iterations of the times that I've gone into the store myself, it's like, wait now, my first initial feeling of, oh, this place is garbage, and then when the company announced Future Shop was being shut down, I'm like, what? Because they were owned by the same parent company. I'm like, why the hell are they shutting Future Shop down and not Best Buy down? And then all of a sudden, over time, this started getting better, and and now it's like, okay, hey, got some time to kill? Oh, let's wander around Best Buy and walk out with $200 in my hands that I didn't plan on spending that day.
It's true. Showcase shops are gone. It's the customer service places that will rule, and it's those kinds of retail environments that really need that kind of hands-on approach. And even things like workshops inside of organizations now. You go to retail companies that have workshops for children or adults. Those are the places that really bring you in and say, "We're going to help you." And it's the same kind of concept that Home Depot. They have the same thing. We're going to help you become a better home buyer, home purchaser, and we're going to help you do home projects. And they had a 3-tiered model. They helped vendors inside the community to get jobs, right? So they helped the community, help people to have products that were less expensive than what they could potentially get if they got it from a contractor, right? So now you have two potential points, and you help people do it themselves as well. So you had these 3 great things: less prices, do it yourself, contractors, vendors. Boom. We got a winning 3-tiered model. So guys like Bernie Marcus and his buddy Fred, created this great company where he enabled the community, his customers and employees, to feel a real sense of accomplishment and connection to the community and something larger than themselves.
That's awesome. And essentially, like you've kind of talked about throughout the whole book, it's making that whole emotional connection between, the organization, the company, and the customer, the leader of the organization, and the employees, to build that culture, to make everybody basically feel at home, so that they want to continue coming back or continue to keep working there, or, basically wanting to make that organization the best place possible.
And I'll say this: sometimes it's hard, because at first
it's always hard.
It's really hard. Anything's hard. Anything worth doing is hard, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's when there's an old culture that wants things a certain way. I'm seeing this right now. And there's a tremendous amount of resistance when the CEO is doing something that's right. CEO, in one case I have, is looking at the company 10 years, 20 years down the road. People who have it right now, who don't want him to change it in terms of strategy, say to him, look, I want things to stay the way they are. I want my salary to stay the way it is. I want my life to be the way it is. I got my BMW. I have my great family. I have my great this. I have my great that. I think life is good. He said, well, guess what? It's not going to be so great 3 years down the road. They say, no, I don't believe it. It's not going to happen. It is going to happen. So what he did is through systems thinking, we're going through a very specific way that they can see things and saying, look, as demand increases, you're not going to have as many of you to supply it, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is you have more demand, you have less supply. Well, you're not going to get much money. You need more talent pipeline. So your salary isn't going to be as high. Guess what? What's going to happen down the pike? You're not going to have as much salary. So nobody wants to believe him. And he's already creating this wonderful new approach. So it takes him about, and this is true, 6 to 9 times before people start believing him. 6 to 9 times. And we had this figure that we were looking at, some research we were looking at, it's about 9 to 12 times was the average amount of time it took for somebody to actually believe a leader that they were actually correct. Because nobody listens. No one wants to listen to what's down the pike. We don't want to hear what's possible. We don't want to hear about potential failure. And you know what happens when that happens. We don't want to hear things that happen. We run aground. Things happen that shouldn't happen. Things go foobar. So when we kind of relax and we realize what really is happening down the pike, what may happen as a result of not doing certain things, we're able to release ourselves of our current state, be it good or bad, to create something that's better.
I love that whole path, and I'm going to throw out something which may shock you. It's actually not even that different in the military. It's just we have a little bit more leverage, so it kind of changes a touch faster, but we still have this very similar issues of it takes a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of reiteration and repeating yourself and constantly pushing out that key message that, we're making this shift, we're making this change. So my last job, I was a squadron commander of 200 soldiers at the base here in Kingston. And for, 2 years, I worked day in, day out, every day, walking in. And what I would tell them was they were the best squadron in the Canadian Forces, right across, coast to coast for the country, the best, group at our level. And the reason why I kept pushing and saying it, and people are like, that's not true. I'm like, it's true if you believe it's true. And that's all mattered, right? And once people start believing it, then they started acting that way. And once people started acting that way, the results started coming. And day in, day out, and I would publicly say it, in front of my boss and my coworkers and stuff like this. A little bit of ribbing fest with my counterparts, endured from it, and she ended up referring to her squadron as the ultimate squadron. A little bit of competition brewed from there, but ultimately, it's that culture. So I like the way this turned, because a great question's coming in is like, how can leaders in an emotionally connected way break that whole old culture model? Because the thing that drives me nuts the most is when someone says, well, we've always done it this way.
That's a great question. That's an awesome question. There's a great statistic that say 80% of change efforts fail. So why do they?
I believe that.
Is that crazy? So they say, why do they fail? Well, they fail for the same reason as you're describing, because people don't want to hear what's possible, and they're not committed to what's happening. Their effective commitment is really low. Their connection to the company and the goals are really low. Their connection to each other is really low. So they don't trust. Their trust levels are really low. So the question is, when we have this kind of thinking, we call it the spark thinking, systemic collaboration, positive future, alignment of values, respect, and killer outcomes, when we look at all 5 of those and we're really honest about them. Let me tell you what I mean by honest. So it's one thing to say in a positive future and systemic collaboration, everybody, now that you're not getting along, collaborate. Competition, not good. Collaborate, right? Or it's another thing. Oh, you're being negative. Be positive. So what happens when you say those things to people? Oh no, put your head down. Not again. I got to collaborate again. So instead, what we're saying is, if we have kind of, think of it a T, you have a little T in the top. Okay, number 1, we're not collaborating, we're competing, we're not doing enough with each other to help each other's lives become even better. Okay, great. So what do? Collaborate. No, don't just collaborate. We're going to do something much different than just collaborate. We're going to acknowledge what we're doing first and why we're feeling and doing the things we're doing. It's okay to compete. We know we're doing it. What is causing us to compete? What of the past should we take with us to bring into the future, right? Some things are okay in competition, right? In order to get better. You named one of them with your squadron leader, the ultimate squadron, right? Right? That's good. That's good competition. It's healthy. So we have to think about ways in which we could take golden nuggets and things that are real and good about the past and put them into the future. Same things with the things that don't work. Some things aren't very functional, right? Right? You know what that's true.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen it happen. I bet you have a lot of examples that you could tell me.
Not enough time.
Not enough time. That's the rabbit hole, right?
Yeah. So
those little things, and they could be anything. It could be someone yelling at somebody else because they're angry that day, and they just really are. The leader's just upset for whatever reason that had happened to them, or something they had to let go of and didn't let go of. It made everybody's life horrible, right? So collaborate, leader. No. What happened, leader? Let go of it. Let's work on letting go of it. Let's work on moving forward. So it's one thing to just say it, to say collaborate or be positive. It's another to say, let's slow down, figure out the things that brought us to where you are now, and say, are those the things that you should bring with you in the future? And what things should you let go of? What things do you need to work on letting go of? Letting go of the stream, breathing through it. Because there's a lot of stuff that happens during a day. You know what I mean? And we need to think about how to compartmentalize some of those things, how to file them properly, how to enable us to move forward in action. and so that we can really, really do well the next time.
One of the things that you just mentioned was about, really doing an analysis and having a good idea. And one of the things I always say to my guys was, especially when we have the time to, is let's not rush to failure. And that's kind of what I feel like you're getting at, right? Is like, okay, we have the time. Let's do the proper thought analysis here. Let's go through all the possible solutions, look at them, look at the pros, the cons, the consequences, and basically go through this so that in the end result, we get the right outcome that we're looking for by saying, okay, let's just do it this way. And also, you're 3 weeks, 3 months down the road and you're like, oh crap, we went right when we should have went left. So that's something I really liked and it really honed in on to me, through the book and as well, as what you were just saying there.
And you need to do that. As a soldier after your action, you need to look at what just happened. You need to look at what and let go. If something went wrong, you let go of it. Let go and say, I got a 4 today. I can get an 8 tomorrow, and that's okay. Maybe I got a 2 today. You're human. You have to accept your humanity of making mistakes, of knowing you can get better tomorrow. And the day after that, maybe it'll be different. Maybe you get a 2 again. That's okay too. This is show business. That's what it's about. We're all players on a stage and we all have things to create and to do. And some of our outcomes just happen to be a little more dire than others.
You opened the door for me, so I'm going to go through it. I really like that whole, it's okay to fail bit, because I feel like we're in a world right now where people are like, oh, the world's moving so fast. There's not enough time in the day. People are working, 10, 12, 18, 20 hours. They come home, they're sitting there on their phones while they're eating dinner and they're cranking up the emails. They're Netflix is on, but, they're on their laptops just punching out the work. And it feels like, oh, if I fail, I'm done, right? It's that feeling everybody feels. That is like, I can't fail, I can't mess up, I can't make a mistake. Yet, I personally believe you should enable people to make mistakes. As long as, here's the kicker, right? As long as they go ahead and learn from them and you implement some mitigation so that mistake doesn't reoccur again, right? So how can leaders go out and foster that type of environment within their organizations in a world like today where people feel like they can't even make those mistakes?
There's a lot of great examples for this. There's a woman by the name of Amy Edmondson. I really like her work because she did work on what's called psychological safety. I liked it so much that I used it in my study for the book in doing a validity study. And what I found was that when people feel emotionally connected to themselves and to others and teams in the company, they feel more psychologically safe inside an environment to fail. So it's okay to fail from my environments. Now, what are some situations where people have feared failure and failure has ensued as a result? Challenger disaster, the 9/11 was another example between communication with CIA, FBI. There's numerous examples of this where catastrophe has happened as a result of people fearing failure. So when we're able to see to that outcome and say to each other, I feel psychologically safe to say what I need to say so we do not run aground on a Navy ship, so we do not get into a situation where information or intel is not provided because we fear that we've given it to a higher up, and that higher up may be angry at us for the intel because it may shift or change an action that could be taken. And if that action that is taken is not specific to the intel, then you'll be the one in trouble for that action. So the way to shift the culture in these examples of intel being provided is to say, I am the leader. I will accept all intel. I am responsible for the actions that I take and the intel that I'm provided. And I will not allow others to be blamed or harmed for the information you provide to me.
Yeah, that would definitely be a powerful statement to say. And I guess that would go in line with creating that safe and secure environment for your people to be able to make mistakes. And most importantly, I would say inform you of said mistakes when they've been noted to occur. Because the worst thing I always wanted was to get either one blindsided by being informed by someone outside of my immediate chain of command, i.e. my subordinates, that something went astray, or suddenly someone showing up and saying, "Hey boss, we got a problem. We tried and we can't fix it and we need your help." And meanwhile, it's like the damage has been done, right? Vice being in that situation saying, "Hey boss, we got a problem. Need your help here." But there's no damage, no harm right now. We just need to get it back going in the right direction. Those are two very different circumstances and situations.
They are. And I'll say this, for any CEO or leader, if they don't have that, they don't have risk mitigation. They're
right.
not doing, it's really, and I say it to everyone, I said, if you don't properly gain the data you need from your stakeholders and your employees, you're not managing your risk properly. So what's important that you do is you have more frequent conversations with your stakeholders and employees in a way that allows you to understand what's really happening in your unit, in your division, in your company. When you lack those conversations and you stay in your ivory tower or your office, you're not managing your risk properly. Know your risk by talking to the people who manage your risk on a daily basis, your employees. There's only one thing that's important inside of a company. It's your talent. Those are the people that get it done. Of the organizations and startups that fail, it's about 45% fail because of the talent. The other ones are related to funding, and like 10 and 12% of funders and VCs and wrong market capital and, not the proper product, all these really small things. There's nothing to do with that. What's really high is choosing the right people and learning how to use and manage information in a way that's really impactful for you as a leader.
I love that. I love all that. So there's a few different things that I used when I was leading my squadron. And one of the things I used to always say was, the troops are the reason for our success, right? They're the ones that are actually doing the business day in, day out. They're the ones that are taking care of all, the tasks, the orders, whatever. We're the ones that are, at the senior level, leading, managing, which, by the way, are two totally different things for people. They need to wrap their head around that and doing that planning and organization thing. And I really like the whole ideology of having to get out of your ivory tower. And a couple of things that I employed when I was leading that squadron was every morning, the first 30 minutes, I spent just wandering around my headquarters area, my immediate area with my first cup of coffee of the day and chatting with people and just seeing, how was their night? How was their weekend? Depending on what day of the week it was, and chit chatting. Every day, first 30 minutes. I say every day. Did it happen 100% every day? No, but more often than not, that's what was my thing. And then my squadron, we were divided in 8 to 9, depending on the time frame, different locations. So once a week, I made sure with me and my right-hand man, we'd get out and we'd go walk the lines and we'll go out and just chat with the people at the ground level to see how things were going, see how they're doing. And look for it. And how many times did I catch either information being misinformation being passed down, squashing rumors that didn't exist, caught something that was stopped that shouldn't have been stopped, that didn't make me, so on and so forth. On top of, building the connection with my people so that they felt that whole safety, security aspect so that when things did go astray, they could come to me. They felt safe enough to come to me, inform me so that we could fix it and get the result back to what we needed. So I think that is a huge piece for the readers out there.
It's really smart you did that, and extremely smart. And I'll bet you it informed you even more because you're able to get information from the people who you're probably working within the local, with who you're working with locally, right? Was that a big issue as well? You got to know the people locally, right? That's
Absolutely.
intel as well. Yeah. People discount that. People come in, they do action, they create a strategy, and they say, "Oh, we're going in, and that's it." And there are many generals who did that in action. It doesn't work today. It does not work today, especially within our theater. The theater that we're in today is very different than it was 40 years ago, 50 years ago. And the theater today says we have to know who and what we're going into, and we have to really understand the civility between and among the people where we're doing action, where we're making action, and or enabling an intervention, because it's so complicated. We've learned these in so many other. I call them interventions, call them wars, whatever you want to call them, interventions, because in an intervention, really human behavior comes into play. We have to observe, we have to watch, we have to listen, we have to owl. If we don't owl, we won't be able to know how to take action. And our amygdala, that little almond-sized shaped organ in our brain that tells us to fight or flight, won't have good enough information to tell the prefrontal cortex whether to take an action. So our fight or flight response becomes even more acute when we're not able to really know where we're taking action. So you're getting intel from your people, and you're getting intel from the communities in which you're doing interventions, and you're observing, you're watching, you're listening, and that will enable you to go in and be confident in your interventions, very confident, so that you can go in not with fear, not with fight or flight, which you'll need to do one or the other. I know that. You'll have more information though when you go in and when you enable that intervention. Owl.
No, I really like that train of thought, and it works for any type of organization. Here at Moving Forward Leadership, not about just military leaders, but all leaders. It doesn't matter if I always say it doesn't matter if you're government, military, business, not for profit. Heck, state-owned parents will all need leadership in our lives, right? So that's really who I aim for here. I'd like to change gears for a minute, because I think our conversation could just keep going and going and going. I got a couple of points I wanted to hit on because they really stuck out to me, because I believe that the audience would definitely get a lot of value out of them. You go into a full well, no, not a full chapter on this one, but it's part of a chapter under values and the whole idea of leading by example. Now, and it's a huge part in the Canadian Forces about leadership and leading by example. But I really wanted for you to discuss from your side of the ship, in particular what you mentioned in Great Company, about leading by example and why it's so important, why it should be a value of a leader.
So I know a leader. It's in the book in Values. His name is Harry Creamer. Harry Creamer was the CEO of Baxter International. And Harry, this is what Harry used to do. So typical pharmaceutical CEOs, you'll see them hiding from the FDA and and getting drug trials done, right? So you see them hiding in their office, or they're from the next lawsuit. Not Harry. He had such high values that there was nothing in his way, because he was so truthful. He was truthful so much that it may not have even helped the bottom line at times. And in the long run, it did, though, for the company, because it was a highly valued company, highly values-driven company. So Harry, one day, he's with his kids going to, doing a picnic. His son says, "Daddy, that's your truck." It says Baxter International. He says, "That is my truck. It's Baxter's, right?" So he went up, and to the guys in the truck, he says, "How you doing? My son's here." He said, "You mind if we just check out the truck? It's really cool." So he says, "Yeah, sure." He says, "Who are you?" I said, "My name's Harry." "Harry, are you the CEO?" He says, "Yeah, I'm the CEO." I said, "I know you." He said, "I know you. You were at the loading docks the other day. You helped us. You never told us you were the CEO." Harry says, "I know. I just like to do that sometimes." He said, "Thanks for helping us that day, Harry, because it got us out of the loading docks a lot faster. We just thought you were one of us." That's good values. To me, that's good values. To me, Harry is the guy who doesn't hide. He doesn't hide from drug trials. He doesn't hide and do scary politics with people. He just does things the way he knows is right. He leads with his heart. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't matter to him, because we always said, when you lead from your heart, you'll always win. When you lead with problem solving, you'll win or you'll lose. Harry always won, in my mind, and a lot of people's minds. That's what matters.
That's an awesome example. I love it so much. For the audience, this goes audio only, so the audience can't see the big grin on my face. But yeah, that's a great example. Actually, it brings back some memories for me too. So my first job as a transport platoon commander, I was like 24 years old, a young lieutenant. I remember rushing into our weekly meeting with my boss, who, is the rank level I'm at now, in coveralls, because I forgot we had our weekly meeting, and I was under greasing up some of our heavy lift trucks. So you stop the meeting. I got coveralls in my notebook. I sit down, and he looks at me and he goes, "Scott, well done. Don't be late again." And everybody else look around at his example, and why don't you have dirt on your hands?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
But you know what it gives? It gives you street credit, right? Yeah. And that when you talk now, the people at the ground level, they can relate to you. They can listen to you. They know that you actually understand what they go through on a day-to-day basis. And it blows my mind, as much as I like the show Undercover Boss, but it also blows my mind, like, why does that show even need to effing exist? Right? It should.
I absolutely agree with you.
Go
ahead. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
It shouldn't exist, because the CEOs and the senior leadership should be, on a regular basis, getting out on the ground level to listen to their people so that they can bring forward these suggestions on the problems that shouldn't even exist, in my mind.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. I think we all are too. That's why those shows are they're silly, because they wear these kind of masks, and they wear these.
Yeah.
They wear a beard, or they might, wear and say, "Oh, I don't know who you are." Well, the truth, and I have a CO I work with. He happens to be in Springfield. He goes to every single hospital. Everybody knows him, and everyone loves him, because he cares about being in the trenches with everybody.
Right.
And he really loves. He's in Springfield, Illinois, and he doesn't pretend. He doesn't have to pretend. He doesn't have to wear a mask. He doesn't have to dress like he's on Halloween. He knows what's happening, and I think that's really the key. Is like when you run your squadron, people know you. They know you're going to get up and you're going to talk to them, like after the first cup of coffee in the morning. They know you. It's important. It's important to any leader. It really is. Values are important, and when you don't align them, nothing works.
Absolutely. So this is going to dovetail into what I'll say is our final discussion point, because I think we could go all evening just talking about leadership. But I like how it kind of fits perfectly into the ideology of respect, and I know why I believe respect is so important, but I'm sure the audience would definitely like it, your perspective on respect and how that can help make that emotionally connected culture, make that as an emotionally connected leader, so you can lead your organization.
Respect is a social currency, and in our cases, it's actually more valuable than money. If you can believe that, people rated respect up to 9 times more important than bonuses, compensation, fancy perks, and foosball tables. It's extraordinary. So what do people crave in the workplace, in relationship? They crave respect. We want to be loved. We want to be cared for. We want to be respected, right? Is that so bad, right? Is it so much? We want to be respected and loved. And we call it a reciprocal currency. So you give some of it, you get some of it. So if you break respect and you break trust, it ends up having a negative downward curve. So you get a hockey stick when you keep giving it and getting it. You get a downward curve when you break it, and you keep breaking it. You could get it back, and it comes back through trust. So doing what you say you're going to do. So could be your significant other. Let's just take for example, you say, "Oh, tonight we're going. I'm definitely not. I'm going to put away the iPad and I'm going to be with you tonight." Nope, I didn't do the iPad that night. Next night, I'm definitely going to put away my work. I'm not going to write. I don't do it again. Boom, 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 boom. I don't respect the relationship. Keeps going. Do. Now they do it back. You know what? I'm going to go with my friends. Keeps doing. So when you don't put that currency in, you're not going to get the currency back. So that's relationship. In organizations, it looks a little different. It comes in the form of bullying, harassment, really like negative stuff. Now, bullying is a very interesting phenomenon, because bullying in human resources is defined in a very interesting way. Bullying is defined as that which I tell you I feel bullied or harassed. If I feel bullied or harassed, I am. In human resources, that's actually the definition. If you go to human resources department, you say, I feel bullied or I feel harassed, it doesn't matter the situation. All that matters is you feel that way. So think about the power in that, number one. So it could be true if you're able to process the bullying in a way that typical people process it. Could have been a mistake that had happened. It could have been perceived as something incorrectly. So when you don't have that one-on-one communication and interaction that enables you to understand that person and their perspective, respect breaks down, trust breaks down. So you have to have this conversation where you first really understand why it is you feel the way you do, because it's so personal. It's such a personal definition. And then when it's ubiquitous, meaning it's throughout the entire system or culture, the leader has to intervene. And there's some specific things the leader can do to intervene when he sees it as systemic. It has to be systemic and not individual. What does that mean? Well, when you can look at Tom Kolditz chapter. Tom is now the leader, the head of the Door Institute for New Leaders in Rice University. He was a brigadier general, and he ran the Korean augmentee soldiers and U.S. soldiers back in the 90s who were in action. And you know about V formation, right? So let's say one part is not talking to the other. What's going to happen? More casualties.
Yep.
So the Korean soldiers and the U.S. soldiers were talking, because the U.S. soldiers said, we have really tough ways of fighting. We want to punch you down. We want to get you to the ground, and we're great at fighting. We're great at shooting. Korean soldiers were into more Taekwondo, more martial arts, more art of war. Didn't talk to each other. So what did Tom do? I think you'll like this one. Tom said, I'm going to get a Korean augmentee soldier, and make him my driver. You mentioned that about driving, didn't you? Before, yeah. I want to make him my driver. That's the number one thing. What's the number one thing you could do on your squadron? Make somebody your driver, right? He made him his driver. And then Tom said, okay, we're going to go one more step forward, because you guys aren't talking. You soldiers aren't respecting the Korean soldiers. We're going to get in some big trouble. So he said, let's get you guys to go to dinner at their families' homes. Blew it out of the water. Now they started eating with them, talking with them, learning Korean. Okay, now it's step 2. No, step number 3. Let's go to the dojos. We're going to learn some martial arts, guys. We're going to learn how you guys fight. Now we're getting really personal. That's the most important thing that any soldier can do, is learn how we fight. Yeah. Same thing with Korean soldiers, U.S. soldiers. Come together. Now we're feeling together, right? Because we're learning, we're being, we're doing, we're together. We respect each other. We get it. We're living, we're doing, we're breathing each other's cultures and each other's ways of being. That's what respect's all about.
And you know what's great about those 3 things? You could say they're work related, but ultimately they're not even that work related, really. If you think about it, a driver could be a driver. So all he did was say, okay, you're going to be in this key appointment close to me. the other one is, working or going to the other person's home, eating meals. You can do that in an organization. You can do it. You can have organizational breakfasts. You can have lunches. You can have coffee hours or coffee breaks, whatever, together. And one thing I like to say is no shop talk when we do those things, right? Because I'm sure, like you said, they weren't talking work at around someone else's dinner table. They're talking about customs, talking about traditions, how you do things here, blah, blah, blah. And we can have those exact same conversations, heck, with our next door neighbor. And then the final thing was, getting to know their pastimes. Because, they use Taekwondo as a form of fitness in the Korean military, but it's not actually how they truly go to combat, because, bullets versus kicks, bullets are going to win every time.
Oh yeah, a gun to a knife fight.
So it's just so many applicable ways that you can go ahead and we do that. I know every organization can't do the same, but we have sports days in our forces, right? And it's not about who's winning or losing. It's just about building that teamwork, that team cohesion. And you see that out in the civilian sector and in organizations with their team building functions, their retreat weekends. These are all great activities in my mind that people can harness and use to build up their organizations, make people know each other better on a deeper level to win that, get that mutual respect going. Louis, it's been great. I think we could keep going, but for the audience and to respect your time as well, I'm going to wrap it down here. But before I wrap up, I got one last question, which I ask all my guests here at Moving Forward Leadership, and that is, what makes a great leader?
You make a great leader. And I really do. I think it's really about living the ideals that you espouse, doing the things you ask others to do, and being with people in a way that fully respects them as human beings in the way that you know and would like to be treated yourself. And it's about achieving together as a team and not as any one individual just telling and yelling.
Yeah. Definitely like that. And thank you for the humbling comment. Appreciate it very much. All right. So end of the show. This is where I flip the mic over, let you take control, and feel free to take a minute or so, give yourself a shameless plug. Where can people find you? Where can they get the book? Anything else you want to throw out there for the audience? Feel free.
You can check me out at lewiscarter.com. It's lewiscarter.com. We're on Amazon.com, and great company. You can go to bestpracticeinstitute.org. We're at all the Barnes and Nobles you could check out. So go to Barnes and Noble, go to your local Barnes and Noble. It's important to support them.
Awesome. For the audience out there, as always, it's easy for you guys. Just go to moveforleadership.com/7575, and all links are going to be in show notes for you. Louis, again, it's been an awesome chat. And seriously, folks, this is a plug straight for me. He's not paying me to say this at all, but really, it really behooves you to go out and grab a copy of the book. It really is one of the best reads I've done probably ever on the topic. So again, Louis, and talking to the audience.
Thank you very much. It was wonderful talking with you, and thank you for having me on tonight. Appreciate it.
Bam. I hope you guys enjoyed that show. I really hope that you got a lot out of it, because you know what? I know I got a lot out of the interview with Louis, and including his book. Again, if you're interested in the book, and I highly recommend it as a buy, in fact, it is the recommended buy for the month of April, then just go to the show notes. Again, that's movingforleadership.com/75, and a link to the book on Amazon is going to be there for you. Quick click, quick buy, bam, you are on your way to reading one of the best books on leadership that I've ever read. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, That's it for today. Remember it as always, R squared S squared, right? Rate and review the show so that other people can find the show and, I can help more people improve their leadership skills and their organizations. And that's what I'm here for. That's the only reason why I'm here for. Helping you become a better leader. S, share. Share this episode with someone who you think may resonate with the message that Lewis was passing on today. Because you never know, it may help them as well. And then finally, subscribe. Subscribe so that you never miss an episode ever. And you can do that simply by going to movingforwardleadership.com/subscribe. As always, ladies and gentlemen, remember, stop bossing, start leading. Take care now.